Listen!
Welcome everyone, this is On Just Restart, and this time we're talking about the importance of the next Nintendo Direct. Now, perhaps you've been living under a rock, maybe you don't pay attention to these things that much, but I'm here to tell you that most of us think a Nintendo Direct is happening really soon. I personally am expecting a Nintendo Direct to be announced tomorrow, which would be February 7th, and I expect the show to actually happen on February 8th of 2023. Of course, this is just my expectation based off rumors and reports and all the information we have that is public. We don't actually know 100% when it's going to happen for sure, but it's widely believed it's happening really soon, so even if for whatever reason it doesn't happen this week, most likely maybe the week after or not too long from then. But the point is, a Nintendo Direct is happening soon, and this Nintendo Direct that's happening in particular has a special importance, and that's what we're focusing on today. Now, every major general Nintendo Direct has importance. Typically what Nintendo does with their Directs is they tell us what's to come for the foreseeable future. In previous years, things were divvied up by 3 major Directs. We would have one in either the February or March time period, then one for the summer, June time period, and then one in September. And typically how it goes, an early year Direct is going to give us information about games that are coming up leading into the summer. So not only games that will be coming out right before the E3 or Summer Direct, but also games coming out around then as well, because you can't announce a game and have it come out just like a week or so later. There needs to be a little bit of a period of time before then. So for example, with this upcoming Direct, we would assume they're going to give us the information we need for games that are coming out between now and leading up until, let's say, mid to late summer. That way, when they have their next event, presumably maybe June, there will already be games we know about that would be coming out in June, July, and August. But maybe in the Summer Direct, what they do is they give us more details on those games, they give us specific release dates and all the things we need to know about them, but they also start to build up the rest of the year. They tell us about most of the major things we need to know about the second half of the year. And that ties us over until we get to the September Direct. And by this point, we should pretty much know what the major holiday lineup is before even this Direct is happening. But when this Direct will come around, we'll get a few more details about the games that are coming out around then. There may be some smaller things that are announced that wouldn't need as large of a announcement to release window, but for the most part, the major lineup we already know about, we're just getting more details, and we'll get a few more smaller things. But also, to prepare themselves for the next year, if we don't already know about it, they will tell us about some of the games that are coming out in the early part of the year to tide us over until we get that next February Direct the year afterwards. And this is typically how it goes. There are exceptions all the time. Sometimes there may not be a Summer Direct, and instead they'll have a partner showcase where they announce a lot of these smaller third-party projects, and then they'll have a couple game dedicated Directs and a few shadow dropped trailers to kind of tide us over until the next big thing. But for the most part, there is an influx of major information in the early part of the year, the mid part of the year, and the late part of the year, and they always prepare us for that next 4-month or so period of time. So yes, with this February Direct, I expect to learn about Kirby's Return to the Dreamland Deluxe, about Bayonetta Origins, maybe they confirm Advance Wars for April, we get the Mario Kart DLC, we get a beginning of the blowout for Tears of the Kingdom, and if there's a game or two coming up between June and August, we'll probably learn more about those as well, and that'll give us just enough information for whatever Nintendo does for this summer. But we're going beyond that here. This is not just about what typically is important, because this Direct in particular, as I said, I think has special importance. And it's not just for one reason. As I brought up earlier, we're going to learn about Tears of the Kingdom. And this is pretty important. It's not the most important thing I'm bringing up in this video, but it is pretty important. It's us finally getting that deluge of Tears of the Kingdom information. Now, I'm not saying Nintendo is going to spoil the entire game for us, but we're going to actually get pre-order information and special edition information maybe soon, and just actual details about the gameplay loop and the story, things we don't really know about. For people that are on the fence, they'll finally know for sure what this game is about, and it's going to finally kick into full gear the media cycle for Tears of the Kingdom, finally. When we finally get a trailer that's more than 90 seconds long, it's gonna be nice. But the main point for this video has to do with what's to come beyond this early part of the year, beyond Tears of the Kingdom. Because as I brought up earlier, it isn't every year that we get a typical E3 Direct. Just last year we didn't. And why? It's because, well, there wasn't really a typical E3. And this year we've gotten news from IGN and Video Games Chronicle that Nintendo, along with Sony and Microsoft, will not be taking part of E3 this year. So with E3 not happening last year, there was concern that maybe Nintendo would do things to the beat of their own drum and not have their typical June Direct. And that's exactly what happened. We did not get a typical Direct. We had a partner showcase. Weeks later, a Xenoblade dedicated Direct, and then later into the summer we got a Splatoon Direct, and we just had a few social media announcements beyond that, and that was pretty much it. So with E3 straight up canceled this time, Nintendo's now in a similar territory where it's entirely on them to march to the beat of their own drum, and we don't know how they're going to handle things. They like to do things sometimes that are kind of unpredictable. So we can't say with confidence that we're going to get an E3 June Direct. I would hope so, but I don't know so. And we take into consideration that people like Andy Robinson and Christopher Dring have been suggesting that Tears of the Kingdom is the last major game, and we take a look at the Nikkei report that Switch 2 production is going to start relatively soon, and that they're aiming for a mid-2024 release, there is a concern that maybe the second half of this year won't have a lot of good games. And I've disagreed with this notion. I feel like I've made myself clear on that in previous videos. But what I'm looking forward to with this particular Direct, beyond just the game announcements itself, is what it suggests for the rest of the year. Are we going to get announcements for things that go beyond just May? Or will we be in a situation where we'll just know about content leading up until like June or July? And if that happens, while that may seem bad, it would actually imply that Nintendo does have another Direct not too long into the summertime to give us information about games coming out for the rest of the year. So basically, if this February Direct, assuming it's a February Direct, tells us about games throughout the entire year, I would say that is a hint that there will not be a major Direct this summer. But if we just learn about what's coming for the next 4 to 5 months or so, that suggests that there's going to be another bigger event this summer. But either way, I also think that they can still give us some things that go beyond later into the year, and it will start to build a better picture for how this lineup is going to look. It will start to make us feel perhaps more confident or less confident about Nintendo having a strong second half. And a strong second half for me isn't back-to-back months of Zelda, Super Mario, Animal Crossing, Pokemon, games that all sell 10 plus million. I don't really care about that. Like, I care that those games succeed because I care about those series and I want Nintendo to do well, yes. But what I really care about is them maintaining this consistent release schedule of quality content. I'm not saying it always has to be a big megaton, but something that's worth playing, that's published directly by Nintendo, that comes out almost every month. That's what I've come to expect throughout the entire Switch era. And given how successful the system is, not just with hardware sales but software sales, they have better momentum than they've ever had. So regardless of whether there's a new system or not coming out next year, I think it would be really unfortunate if Nintendo were to give up on all this incredible momentum they have just to have an awkward transition over to their next system. These awkward transitions are in large part why I think a lot of Nintendo systems haven't done well. The Wii to the Wii U was a terrible, terrible transition. Some parts of me feel that the Wii really ended back in 2010, and the last big game from Nintendo was Donkey Kong Country Returns, and I love that game. And you may say, well, hold on, there was Skyward Sword that came out a year later. Yes, but what came out between then? Not much. It was kind of dull. There wasn't much momentum. Wii sales were going straight down, there wasn't a lot of games, and by the time Skyward Sword came out in 2011, even though it was finally the big Zelda game that was made ground up for the Wii that we were waiting for that entire generation, it was a little underwhelming overall compared to what our expectations were. Still a great game, still love it, cherish it, but it definitely underperformed. And then a year later, with not much else to play, we got the Wii U, which came with games that weren't really killer apps. They weren't anything super amazing that were highly memorable. We had another 2D Mario game, and we had some third-party games. There was Zombie U, which was certainly a neat novel idea, but it wasn't anything extraordinary. It was just one of many games that were kind of okay for that particular time period. In my opinion, those were the dark ages of Nintendo. Not having consistent releases, not having consistent momentum, and having people forget about Nintendo, having people just focus on the other systems and not really think of Nintendo as a games company. It was getting to that point. There were all these conversations, articles about, oh, who's the big winner of the era? And they would always bring up two systems. They would never talk about Nintendo, as if Nintendo didn't really matter. Now, Nintendo definitely matters. This, I would argue, is like the golden age for Nintendo. So ultimately, when we see this Direct, what I'm looking for, beyond the typical things and the excitement for Zelda and other hopeful announcements, is how Nintendo is treating the rest of this year, how they're going to handle their transition onto the next system, and if there's going to be a Summer Direct. These are the kind of signs I'm looking to see in the next Direct, and I think it's going to be very telling. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, everyone, this is On Just Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.